Ms. Jones, you will call roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Butler,
Present.
Commissioner Hall,
Present.
Commissioner Street,
Present.
Mayor Anderson, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. We'll go to prayer and pledge if you'll join me. Lord, we're meeting today to conduct matters of business. Guide our hearts and our mind in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We move to item 4, approval of the agenda. We had one reference, a recommendation to defer item 10D. I entertain a motion to approve with. And that's
So
correct.
move.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Carter, that's great. 10D. This is the one we discussed.
The mayor contacted me via text message, and she wanted to review the matter a little further. The mayor mentioned that she had concern about a conflict of interest. The fact is, the city's already under contract with Reagan Smith, and this, I believe, is an amendment to that contract. I don't view the city having a professional relationship with an entity like Reagan Smith, and Reagan Smith working on a subdivision or 3 or 5 in the city as a conflict of interest, any more than when I represent multiple clients. But the mayor has asked for deferrals just so she can look at it a little further, and I told her I would communicate that message to the board since she couldn't be here tonight.
Okay. Thank you, sir. We have a first and a second. Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Street,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Butler.
Aye. Thank you. We will go to citizens' comments.
There's 2 tonight. The first is Miss Tiffany Wilson Mobley.
Welcome. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Tiffany Wilson Mobley. I live at 7303 Cox Run Court in Fairview. I do have a question for you, sir. You said that if we had any follow-up questions. One of those is, yes, I'm wondering if any of you all live here in Fairview.
Ms. Mobley, if you could address the board during citizens'
Okay.
comments. Yes, ma'am.
The reason I'm asking that question is because when we have developers come into our town who want to come in, take our land, and use it for their financial gain, I do think that it's very important for our commissioners, and I'm very grateful for you, to remember that you are the protection for us as our developers come with their sales pitches and their smoke and mirrors, trying to make sure that they can use the land that they've bought for their own financial gain. The reason why this is such an important item for me is because, and for all of us, is because we will be here until the end. We're going to be here after they're gone. We're going to be here when their work is finished. We're going to be here to not reap any benefits, any potential harm that they may cause to our environment. So it's very, very important that our commissioners, and I do think you realize, but just to reiterate the fact that any pressure through, again, these lovely sales pitches that our developers coming into our town give you, that you realize you do not have to be swayed by them or our attorney. Our attorney is also not from Fairview. He is new to our town. He is coming here from Spring Hill. As a citizen, I would like to clearly state that we do not want another Spring Hill. We'd like this city to grow. responsibly, in a way that will sustain. So commissioners, please, whatever you do, don't feel pressure from developers, don't feel pressure from our attorney. You must think about what your citizens are asking you to do. This is the reason you're in those chairs. You're here to represent. Just because a developer turns in an application, that does not mean it must be approved. This is a prime area. If our developers or any developers want to come in and develop this land, they must be approved by you. Please, whatever you do, don't let them pressure you to anything. This is our land. There's only so much of it. If we're the city of Franklin, these developers will be jumping through hoops, so many hoops to try and have a piece of their land. We can have the same strictness for ours. I think for a long time, developers have bullied our town,
That's your 3
and
minutes.
I'm tired of it. Thank you.
Next, we have Susan Morrison.
Hello,
Welcome.
thank you. I'm Susan Morrison, and I live at 7250 Northwest Highway. I am going to sound like a broken record because I've said these things before, but I want to keep them in front and center. In fact, I've said some of these things for 15 years because I've been looking at this property for 15 years. I've lived in the same spot. All the procedures, the planning commission and first reading, second reading, going here and going there and zoning and another application, I don't follow it all. It's really not my jam. But philosophically, I do have some comments I want to make. The Walton Group, I think they've said they're doing these developments here and there, everywhere, all over. They're very good at what they do. They've been before city commissions all over the country. It's their job. Everybody's got to have a job. They're good at it. That's great. Thing is, this is my only community. This is it. I'm not moving. Rick is going to bury me. He's going to dig a hole and bury me over there. I'm not leaving. But I've invested my whole life here. My kids, we've done, everything. We volunteer, habitat houses. You get my point. It's my only community, and that's why we care so much. Phrases like I've seen in responsible development, I mean, we've all made adjustments to the traffic, to the development, the loss of habitat for trees and everything else. We've all made those. If you live here, we've made those adjustments, and we're willing to do that for reasonable. 66 houses a half a mile from me, another 20 or so, just a quarter mile. Okay, I mean, I don't love it, but I get it. But 511 houses on top of that is a horse of a different color. That's a whole different thing. Just want you to carefully consider it. This is our future. As we are here now because of a decision that was made in 2008 by Planning Commission, Board of Commissioners made that decision. Here we are 15 years later, and we don't know how to get out of it. We don't think it's a great idea then, and probably don't think it's a great idea now, but we don't know how to backtrack. So your
3 minutes is Morrison.
decision, I'm sorry. Anyway, I had another point.
Thank you. Just the two, Ms. Jones, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's all.
Thank you. We'll move to item 6, public announcements, awards, and recognitions. Item A, city events.
Thank you. I'm not going to read the events there but I do have three things I did want to bring out. prescription drug take-back is being held this Saturday at Tractor Supply from 9 in the morning till noon. They're also going to be providing car seat checks there at Tractor Supply as well. Also on Saturday, the park plant swap is being held at the Nature Center at 8 a.m., hosted by the Friends of the Park. Also, next Tuesday, the Parks Master Plan Public Meeting number 2 is scheduled here at City Hall from 5:30 to 7:30. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item 6B, Arbor Day Proclamation. So hopefully this will be my first proclamation, so it's just proper to read it in. So City of Fairview Proclamation, Arbor Day, whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas Dr. Evangeline Bowie used land management techniques, including planting over 500,000 trees that transformed barren and eroded land into a park treasured, gifted to the city that now includes over 700 acres of forest, lakes, and 17 miles of trails. And whereas the city of Fairview is located on the western Highland Rim and within a diverse and unique hardwood forest, and whereas the redbud tree has been designated the official city tree, and whereas the city of Fairview was designated as a Tree City USA in 2019, and whereas trees save stormwater retention costs, save energy, appeal to shoppers, slow traffic, provide health benefits, mitigate noise, provide wildlife habitat, clean and cool the air, attract people and industry, increase home values, increase pavement life, reduce crime, increase office worker productivity, are beautiful, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of Fairview, Tennessee, does hereby proclaim April 28, 2023 as Arbor Day in the city of Fairview, to be observed annually on the last Friday in April going forward, and urges the citizens to plant trees and protect our woodlands to promote the well-being of this and future generations. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause to the great seal of the city of Fairview to be affixed this 20th day of April 23. Mayor Lisa Anderson, or Vice Mayor Brenda Butler. Any addition? Yes, ma'am.
Just thank Scott McCoy for the past 45 years taking care of the application to the Arbor Day Foundation to make the city of Fairview a Tree City USA.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Early. Mr. McCoy on the tree board took it upon himself to fill out the application to make the city of Fairview a Tree City USA, and this proclamation is one of those steps. And I would certainly like to thank Mr. McCoy for continuing his efforts and continuing to push and do this for us. We'll move to item 7. And just in relation to that, we'll drop the note again that the Arbor Day and Plant Swap, Earth Day and Arbor Day Plant Swap is this Saturday at Bowie Park, like Mr. Daugherty just mentioned. I'll plug it again. Item 7, staff comments and monthly reports. 7A, police report. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. In March, it was the same as it was previously in February for staffing, 26. Overtime was up 1, and then there was an uptick on training hours from 472 to 748. Next slide. Calls for service, there was a slight uptick from February to March 23rd. Next. Citations are going to be down for the month of March. We had 121 in February and 83 in March. Everything else appears to stay the same, except for property damages, which is close to the same. It's up 12, and with injury in those being 3. Next slide. This Saturday, we're going to have a drug take-back. I will be there for the car seat checks. It's going to be at Tractor Supply from 9 to 12. Also, Morgan Smith and Luke Blair have decided to go elsewhere, and we are hiring. Questions?
On the training, what part of our training protects the children in schools?
What part of training protects children in schools?
Yeah. Do we have a
So-
training set aside for responding to,
We do this year, and they're trying to work it in more often, but we have active shooter training. Also, we're going to be doing a co-op with Williamson County. I know I'm going June 1st, but all of the officers in Fairview have signed up to get with Williamson County deputies so that we can practice active shooter training.
thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Any additional questions? Thank you, sir. Have a good evening. All right, item 7B, fire report. Welcome.
Evening, my name's Jake. I work for the fire department in charge of training and safety. The fire chief had a previous engagement, so I'm filling in as his proxy this evening. So for the month of March, I got a couple quick stats for you. We were 128 calls for the month of March this year as per the previous reporting period the year prior. We had 24 overlapping incidents for this previous month. That's really because of a significant wind event that we had blow through the city, so that crews were going from one call to the next call to the next call. That's why we see, I put 2 arrows next. That's why we were so busy with overlapping runs. We had 4 incidents where a fire was extinguished. Those were in the county. It was a part of our mutual or automatic aid agreements where we go and help the county fire department. One was a building fire, and there was 3 grass fires in the month of March. Again, there was 9 automatic or mutual aid responses. Of those 9, again, 4 resulted in a fire being extinguished. I talked already about the wind event that resulted in several incidents in and around the city. Our response time for the month of March was at 5 minutes and 33 seconds. That's up from normal. And our time operating was at 14:39, which is down from the previous month. So again, our response times are up. Our time operating was down. For the month of March, we had 1 public relation interaction, or event, if you will, and we had 12 interactions at that event. I'll talk real quickly about smoke alarms and 911, calling 911 for your emergencies. We talk about this every month, but in March alone, we had 2 voicemails left at the City of Fairview Fire Department reporting a fire. I cannot stress it enough, if you have an emergency, to call 911. Try to get that message out every month. To our citizens also, if they need smoke alarms in their homes, feel free to call the non-emergent, the business line, the 799-3473, to call us, and we'll schedule time to come out and install those smoke alarms. But the business line is for our business purposes, and 911 for our emergencies. Keith, if you'll flip the slide, please. So we're looking at the March calls. Again, we had 128. The majority of our calls, at 64%, were our rescue and emergency medical services, where we respond with the ambulance service, provide that first line of care, and help with our citizens. The rest of the breakdown is there in that slide as well, and just a couple pictures from grass fires and that 1 building fire that we had. Keith, the next slide, please. This is just the heat map showing where those calls for the month of March were located across the city limits. Of course, you can see there's a couple hot spots in and around the center of town. Our 96 and I-40 interchange continues to be a hot spot. And there's a picture of just multiple city services and citizens of Fairview Hope cleaning up the roads and streets after that wind event. Keith, slide, please. And then I think this is my last slide for the month, is our training hours. We had 584 training hours for the month of March. We're right into the thick of things in our training. The nicer months is when we get out and we actually do a lot of our on-the-job physical training. So as you can see, there's several pictures from we were using all the tools that are currently assigned to the fire department that help us effect rescues and life safety. So we got our ladders out and our saws for forcible entry. We also had new hires from the Public Safety Dispatch Center. They came and they visited our fire station to see what we were all about, learn about firefighting, and all of that. Additionally, we had 2 members attend at the State Fire Academy, the Incident Safety Officer class. 1 attended the Fire Officer 3 class. And then we had a promotional assessment where 4 candidates that are currently hires of the fire department. They went through a promotional process to fill a vacancy there. Keith, I think that's my last slide. Cool. Is there any questions of me of the fire department that I could help answer?
I have another one.
Yes, sir, Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Jake. I know y'all are the backup for a lot of services and a lot of needs for our town. Do you have any training for backup to help the police in case of an active shooter?
So, yes, is the quick answer. So in backup, we don't necessarily back up the fire department, or I'm sorry, the police department. Our job is to participate in what's called a rescue task force in these type of incidents. Our job is to move the sick and injured, if you will, from the environment to a casualty collection point,
Right.
And where they're treated by EMS and then either treated or transported to a higher level of care. The City of Fairview Fire Department participates in the Williamson County, it's the ASHER, the Active Shooter Hostile Event Response. It's a group of all the Williamson County public safety entities. We participate regularly in that coalition for planning, training, equipment needs, and things of that nature.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the work y'all do, as well as the police department. I don't know where we'd be without y'all. Thank you so much.
Very well.
Thank you, sir. Item 7C, City Manager Report.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Wanted to announce that we have, Rachel has turned in our municipal code to MTAS for final review. Also wanted to tell a couple more things about the fire department. I believe the fire training tower is going to be complete this week or shortly thereafter. I took a small tour this week. It's pretty impressive. I'm gonna let y'all train in it though. The EMS living quarters and fire classroom remodel is getting close to being in its, if not in its final stages, close, and it's looking real good too. We already talked about the park master plan Tuesday. The public works have been very busy with the wind event that you heard about the previous two reports, and as of to date, they have chipped approximately 90 tons of brush so far this month. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Any questions? I will ask you, have they started the fence? Any update or status on the playground fence?
Keith said that, hold on.
Starting tomorrow. Thank you, sir. It's supposed to rain tomorrow, right? Okay. We'll move to item eight. Consent agenda for items A and B are the minutes from April 6, 2023 work session and April 6, 2023 regular meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve consent agenda?
Move to approve consent agenda.
Second.
First and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Street. Aye. Vice Mayor Butler.
Aye. We move to old business. 9A, Resolution 25-23, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement between Jan Pro Cleaning and Disinfecting and the City of Fairview, Tennessee. Mr. Daugherty.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. As you may recall, last meeting, we had a work session. They came out and talked about their service, and we had a work session. And then we also had a couple of issues with the contract that the board wanted to be addressed. Those concerns have been addressed. I believe the contract is ready to be signed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Move to approve.
A motion? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any additional discussion? Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Street. Aye. Vice Mayor Butler.
Aye. Item old business 9B, resolution 2022-23, annexation of parcel on Overby Road. We will open public hearing. Anyone here to speak on this matter? If not, we will move to item B2, resolution 22-23, a resolution to annex certain territory upon written consent of the owners and to incorporate the same within the boundaries of the city of Fairview, Tennessee, map 69, parcel 21, 7305 Overby Road, 4.9 acres, property owner First Baptist Church of Fairview.
Move to approve.
Motion, there's a second.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Yes, sir.
It would be appropriate for the board to at least mention that they reviewed the plan of services and that it's appropriate and that you find it appropriate and suitable.
You want that part of the motion?
Discussion?
Just discussion, okay.
Just a few notes. It was a 9-0 favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission. It's inside the future urban growth boundary for the city of Fairview, and the future use map calls for the rural corridor, which R40 would be an appropriate use, which is what would be coming in with the annexation. This is right off Overby Road. Right, you can see Fairview Boulevard there, and First Baptist Church across the street there.
I think most of that was stated for parking spaces more than anything else.
Additional discussion? Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Street,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Butler,
Aye. Go to old business item C, ordinance 2023-02, rezoning a property on Highway 96. We will open the public hearing for this item. Property is located at 1327 Highway 96 North. Currently commercial general going to RM20. So we'll open the public hearing. If anyone would like to speak on this? If not, we will go to item C2. Second and final reading of ordinance 2023-02, an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance of the city of Fairview, Tennessee by rezoning 3.97 acres of property located at 1327 Highway 96 North, consisting of Williamson County Tax Map 18, Parcel 29, from CG Commercial General to RM20 Multifamily Residential. Property owners Brian Spicer, Ken Carger, and Tim Mangrum.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve. Second. Good evening. You have any additional notes for us? Or
Tim Mangrum, sorry, Tim Mangrum, 7326 Farmville Road. Yes, our plan for this would be to build approximately 75 condominiums for workforce housing, varying from 1 bedroom to 3 bedroom. We don't have an exact number yet because we haven't got that far into that because we need to see if we get the zoning before we took that step.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or discussion?
This is zoned for the 2040 plan as commercial, is that correct?
It's interchange business employment, which includes multifamily as a,
Okay.
Just a few additional notes. It was a 8-1 Planning Commission positive recommendation. The areas around it are industrial and commercially zoned properties, and across the street is an RM20 zoning, which is the same as being applied for. The future map identifies as the interchange business employment district, and one of the appropriate land uses is multifamily residential. towards the interchange is where some of the higher density is designated. Any additional discussion or questions? Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Butler,
Aye.
Commissioner Street,
We're putting 75 more people on the roads again. 75 more.
Mr.
Point of
The-
order,
This is explaining my answer.
point of order, the appropriate, we're not answering, it needs to be either aye, nay, or abstain. We're past discussion.
Then
We're in
nay.
active voting.
Thank you, guys.
We will move to new business, item 10A. Resolution 27-23, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement between Perry Companies Incorporated and the city of Fairview, Tennessee. This is from our workshop prior.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Pieri has stayed to this, for this meeting, if you have any questions, and he spoke at the work session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Move to approve. This is very much needed right now. Thank you.
Motion, is there a second? I will second. Discussion, questions? Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Butler,
Aye.
Commissioner Street,
Aye.
Thank you. New business, item B. Ordinance 2023-03, an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance of the city of Fairview by approving the major modification amendment of the Bellhaven planned unit development with 513 residential units on 251.16 acres of property, consisting of map 21, parcel 21.01, applicant D.R. Horton, property owner Walton, Tennessee, LLC.
With the mayor's request, I move for deferral. This is not the one? I thought it was 10B.
10D, sorry.
D, I'm sorry. Okay. I'll remove my motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Move for approval.
Second. Any discussion or questions? One of the questions I had for staff was where the off-site capital improvements requirements are captured. So when we had the resolution with the Planning Commission, there was a note, a stipulation of approval for the portion of City of Fairview Capital Improvement Plan to expand Northwest Highway to a 3-lane collector to be paid prior to the final site development plan approval in the amount agreed upon by the City of Fairview and developer and approved by the Board of Commissioners. I just didn't see similar language.
The ordinance adopts PC and
Okay.
the PC resolution into it.
Okay,
It's written in one of the whereases towards the end.
okay. And procedurally, this will be a first reading. There will be a second reading with a public hearing, correct?
Yes, and if I may, there was a comment made during the appeal that this board should look at it as a legislative decision and not an administrative review. The difference being an administrative review is that if you find it meets the underlying zoning, you have to approve it under the law. You don't have any discretion. The case on that, one of the cases on that is Cost Enters LLC versus City of Lebanon. It was a 2009 Court of Appeals case of Tennessee. I'm going to quote relevant part. The appellate court found that the PUD was not a typical rezoning matter. In the city, the approval of a PUD involved the execution of existing ordinance, not the making of new law. The exercise of such authority by the city council was properly characterized as administrative rather than legislative. And this case happened in Lebanon. The Lebanon City Council must apply the PUD standards that it has enacted in its ordinances. Applying some other undefined, undisclosed, or unanticipated standard will make the council's decision regarding the PUD illegal, arbitrary, and fraudulent. A decision is considered arbitrary when there is no evidence on the record to support it. I'll remind you that staff has reviewed this PUD, the master plan, and has found that it complies with the underlying PUD zoning. And so sometimes when I make recommendations, they're not just, they're well thought out. And so, and I'm not telling you what to do. That's not my job. My job is to tell you what the law is and how to apply it. And so the appropriate review here is administrative. So if you find that it meets our standards, the underlying PUD zoning, then you must approve it. If you don't believe it meets our standards, then you must say that on the record. Or I would urge you to say it on the record, because the likelihood is that there'll be litigation that follows. But, and Ms. Toddy can tell you, but our planners report, this plan hasn't changed since the Planning Commission recommended it to the BOC. The planner, before he left the city, found that it met all the city standards. Ms. Toddy's looked at it herself. That's her opinion also. It's also my opinion. I'm also not, and I'll clarify, I'm not from Spring Hill. I'm actually from Columbia. So I just represent Spring Hill. That was misinterpreted or misstated during the meeting. It's not really relevant anyway. But anyway, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you.
I have one question for Ms. Toddy. This does meet our 2040 plan, right?
Yes. Yeah, well, this was already the zone, so the 2040 plan, this wasn't, 2040 relates to rezonings. This is zoned RM8 PUD.
So this PUD was put in place in 2006 and 2008. That would have been the chance for the city to use legislative review, and as long as they had a rational basis for not rezoning it, they could have chosen to do that at that time. But the fact is, this board has this pre-existing zoning, and so that's why we have the question, does this master plan comply with underlying zoning? And when we talk about property rights work two ways. They work for everybody, not just when you're for or against something. And so that's why we have a code and why we have state law. And sometimes doing the right thing is not necessarily popular. And this is not going to be if you decide it meets our codes, it meets our standards, that may not be popular. If you decide that it doesn't, that's not going to be popular either. Mm-hmm. What you've been elected to do is difficult, and you make difficult decisions that some people like and some people don't. But staff's recommendation here and findings is that it complies with the zoning. And I think your duties require you to approve it if you find it meets that standard. If it doesn't, then we need to discuss it and put it on the record. But
so are you saying that we have to approve this even though the zoning was done back in 2006 or 8 and the city has completely changed since then?
yes.
And that this...
I'm not telling you you have to do one thing or another. I'm recommending that you approve it. I'm telling you your duty would seem to me to be able to approve it because the standard is arbitrary and capricious. So if the master plan meets the zone of the property, legally, it requires you to approve it. Now, if you decide not to do that, I give people legal recommendations all the time, and they decide to do different things, and then they have to live with that. All I can tell you is what the law is and what my recommendation is, Commissioner Street. This has nothing to do with how the city's changed or anything. This has everything to do with the property's zoning that was put in place in 2008, long before I came to Fairview.
Any additional questions or discussion?
I have one more. Would it be proper to ask the new person that we just signed on to review this and give us his opinion at a later date?
I don't think so, because that person's been, I don't think it changes the outcome, Commissioner Hall. The recommendation's been made by the PC. This is not a hearing of what Mr. Sullivan's opinion was or not. Ms. Toddy's very capable. She's reviewed it. Our planner at the time reviewed it. The plan hasn't changed. I've reviewed it. The person that we've hired is here on we've hired him for codes review. And so, no, I would not recommend that. Now, again, we're here for first reading. There's going to be a second reading and a public hearing. And so if you want to direct staff to, and you can direct staff to do whatever you want as the Board of Commissioners, but I think it's here, the parties are all here, and I would recommend that we have first reading, and then we'll have second reading in a month.
Additional questions or discussion? Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Butler,
Aye.
Commissioner Street,
Nay.
New business item 10C. Ordinance 2023-04, an ordinance to amend Title IV, Chapter 2, miscellaneous personnel regulations, and to adopt personnel rules for the city of Fairview, Tennessee. Mr. Daughtry.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We went over this in the work session. Just cleaning up and getting our personnel rules, policy where it needs to be. MTAS has been heavily involved, and I believe this is, if you have any questions, Mr. Donham is here representing MTAS, but I believe this is ready to be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone like to make a motion?
Move to approve.
We have the first. Is there a second? Second. Any additional discussion or questions? And this was the item we discussed in the workshop prior as well.
It is, and I believe this is an excellent improvement for the city and their personnel policy, and comes at a good time. We're low on staff right now, and so I think this is an opportune time to adopt this and have a good basis going forward for our new hires.
Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Butler,
Aye.
Commissioner Street,
Aye.
New business item 10D was deferred. So 10E, discussion on yearly donations to Fairview Schools. Commissioner Street.
So for this right here, I've heard that we used to have donations or contributions made to our school system, and I was told that hasn't been done over the last few years. I don't have exact dates or anything. I'd like to bring the discussion back up due to one situation that I experienced with the schools. We have our athletic fields at the high school and the middle school that have not been kept up. They're not safe for some sports. We have a lot of people that come to those places, and for an example, the high school softball team this year, they had to take their first home game and move it from the Fairview High School softball field at the last minute to the Fairview rec fields because those fields are better than the high school fields. Our students represent our schools, and we need to represent them. We need to take care of them. We need to give them proper funding to help do the best that they can do. And, there's a lot of things that need to happen to those fields to make them playable and safe. the discussion, yearly donations, I'm not saying are specific to the athletic fields, but I want to start there since there are a lot. There's rec leagues that practice on these fields. There's flag football plays on the middle school field. We've got a lot of people to come to these events that see this and see how we are pretty much treating our students right now. So I have Theo Langford with Turf Noggin. He's the one who actually cuts the fields for us, but he has given, he's written down estimates, and he is willing to come up and talk. And if y'all have questions for him, the estimates are not necessarily anything. Obviously it's going to take time if we can get something approved as far as helping to contribute. I can tell you also real quick that the softball field, we have 3 donations so far of $3,000 total to complete around a $13,000 job. And if we can contribute $210,000 to Williamson County stuff, then I think we can contribute to our schools here. So, Theo, do you mind coming up?
Are there questions, or you want me to kind of go over what I gave you today?
Start with going over it, just because only a few of us have the papers.
Okay, so it was requested by Commissioner Street that I provide a report per se of the individual fields at the high school and then also at the middle school on terms of what they need to be fixed or brought up to a safe level of play. Each individual field has their own list of issues, ranging in a wide range of cost. Some you may put in a category of more important or less important, but what most of you have there is a listing of each of the fields with the exception of the practice field at the high school. And I left it off the list because we pretty much have it to the point now to where it's in fairly good shape with the addition of the new artificial turf field. The football team practices there, and so the wear and tear on that practice field is minimal. The band now uses that field for practice as opposed to the parking lot, and I don't blame them. I'd want to do that too. But each field has its own list of issues. I would say probably the more important in the list of what needs to be done is irrigation, and then also what Ms. Street was alluding to on the softball field. Any type of rain they get there, that infield is pretty much unusable until it's able to be worked for several hours, as opposed to if it was in a better condition. Why it's where it's at now, it's just, I don't want to say neglect, but lack of maintenance is typically on a baseball or softball field. You're adding new infill material there every 2 to 5 years. I can't tell you the last time that any infill mix or dirt was added to the softball field. I don't know the answer to that. Just based on being there, it has been, I can tell you it's been a while. They have some drainage issues there at the infield, the way the dugouts are built. Water drains out third base side. There's a gate, a pedestrian gate. Actually the land or the common space outside of the fenced-in area is actually higher than the infield is. So water can't drain out. So Coach Jones and his assistants are out there with buckets and brooms trying to push water off, and while doing that, they're only making their issue worse because they're just making a bigger hole. So that is one issue on the softball field, and they have some irrigation issues there as well. Their irrigation problems are far less worse than what's going on in some of the other fields. But for those of you that do have report, do you have any questions about it?
Does the county help at all in the maintenance of these fields?
No, the school, no, I said no. I believe the school system provides each school with a minimum amount of money. It fluctuates each year based on the budget. Last I heard, it was $5,000. That doesn't go very far. So how it currently stands, the school purchases upfront for the year all the fertilizer they need, all the seed they need, and about a fourth of the pesticides they need to maintain the weeds and things of that nature. I have a contract with the high school where I mow the fields for them. It's more of I help them mow. It's not my responsibility to make it happen, but I pretty much got left with that responsibility just because. And then I do the treatments and things like that for them. The money that I'm paid for that actually gets flipped back into the fields. None of that money goes into my pocket. It just makes things easier for me to purchase things for the mower, the tractor, spreaders, things of that nature. I cover the cost of all sprayings on the field, the pesticides. The school doesn't get a bill for that. That just comes right out of what they pay me. It just makes the process a little bit easier. That way I'm not having to wait on POs, and it's not a fun process to have to wait for somebody, to have to wait for somebody, to have to wait for somebody else. So when they pay me, I just order the service and it gets taken care of. But to answer your question, they give a little bit, but I don't know how much.
Thank you, sir.
I will just say, as long as I can remember, you have volunteered and worked and helped every field in Fairview, so thank you. And it sounds like you're continuing to do so. And just to piggyback off Mr. Hall's question, do you know if this has ever been presented to the Williamson County, the issues or the problems?
So I don't know the answer to that. I do know that I have pushed for the administration and coaches to do so. However, everything that I get back is once the fields are installed, the county covers the cost of that, and then it's up to the school to maintain it from there. Unless there's something major, and there's major being structural, and there's only one case that I know of that potentially becoming a problem on the soccer field. There's a culvert drain that goes under the field that goes from the parking lot out towards the highway where the tennis courts are, or one side of the tennis courts. The ground's actually starting to settle along that culvert and creating a pretty good sized settled area. And I mean, it's not to the point you're going to run across it and fall down, but it's gradually getting there. But to answer your question, I don't know that.
That is actually in the playing surface.
Yes, sir, it is.
What about the base paths? Do they have potholes? And I know when I played ball, everybody would get up there and they'd dig out the place around home plate. We could understand that.
I'll say on baseball, the baseball coaches, the guys that are there now, have done a really, really good job with what they have the funds and know-how to do. The infield surface is in pretty good shape. They actually raised their own funds and were able to get infield material put in right before this season started. So we're taking baby steps. I came into play about 2 years ago, and so we're slowly and gradually making improvements. But there's some major improvements that you'll see on that list there that are far more than what I can personally do.
Like the softball fields, how are they?
Sir?
The softball fields, how are they? In pretty bad shape?
Outfield's in actually pretty good shape. They do have some irrigation issues. They have some valves that are leaking, things of that nature. Their control box does not work. All the irrigation has to be turned on by hand, which can be a bit of an annoying chore. But the infield is just low on material, and it needs to be laser graded and made to where the water will actually shed off of the field instead of just kind of staying there.
What is your opinion as far as donations to this? I know you were a soccer person in your day.
I've got a little bit of experience. I've got a little bit of experience on the city side and a little bit of experience on the other side. I'll talk about the city side experience. everything that, we had a fund, and you'll remember this fund called the School Facilities Tax Fund. And every bit, and then, of course, we were the only city that was taking care of we keep retaining all of our sales tax. And all the other cities in the county, when they decided to keep the rest of the 25, rest of the money on the sales tax, they wanted it all to go into paying off school debt. Well, we were already keeping ours, so we made a deal with them where they would just keep our school facilities tax for X number of years, and we had a pot left over, and then they let us, I think we put some money into the signage at each school, the lights, the signs that light up in front of each school, and we also put in the new improvement to the press box at the football field. But what happened is we had to go through everything we had to do. It had to go through the county. So we had to have documents signed. Everything was, kind of like an interlocal agreement type deal. So I've never done anything with the county. Even these funds we did for the lighting, there's an interlocal agreement. And pretty much once you give them the money, our hands are washed of it. I mean, it's really theirs. It is, I want to reiterate, it is county property. We pay county taxes, and most of our sales tax, half of our sales tax goes to schools. So Williamson County schools are pretty well funded, in my opinion, and they, I think, have pushed hard enough. The place to get the money is from Williamson County, especially since we pay for it, half of our sales tax, and everything else. So that goes to the county. So I mean, I'm not against donating. I just know it's kind of like the little guy giving to the big guy, or the poor guy giving to the rich guy. It's kind of the way I look at it. Then on the other side, I don't know if any of y'all remember when I coached middle school soccer. I had one of my players pass away at practice, and we wanted to put together a memorial. And it was like pulling teeth. We raised every dime to put the memorial up there, put the benches that are there at the soccer field now, and it was like pulling teeth with the county getting that done. So my experiences have not been super positive, but we got it done. But we raised every dime. The county didn't put a cent into that. And so those have been my experiences. And then we had to check off on everything that, they wanted it done exactly the way they wanted it. So I guess what I'm going to say is, as we get into this, yes, we can do it, but they're going to do it the way that they're going to take our money and do it the way they want to do it, is how it's been my experience. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
From a procedural standpoint, and I don't know the answer to this question, but I would recommend that staff look into the city's donation policy. The city, first and foremost, before we consider specific donations to any group, we need to make sure that we, as a city, have a donation policy to exempt, tax exempt, or nonprofit organizations. As I sit here, I don't know if Fairview has one or not. I haven't reviewed it. We may well have one, or we may not. If we don't, then Mr. Doherty, it's been a long day, can work with MTAS and myself. They'll have a model policy that the BOC can review and pass as a donation policy that would set limits and parameters, to what type of organizations, up to what dollar amount. If we do have a policy, we need to know what it is before we consider any specific donations. And so that would be my recommendation, is that staff really need to look into that before we consider any specific donations. And I don't know the answer as I sit here. It hasn't been an issue yet until the night, so.
And I guess the only other thing I want to say is that school facilities money, we had to get rid of. It wasn't really a donation. It was us giving the county back its own money that they had given us to hold.
But we got to control where they went to Fairview
Right,
instead of. Yeah.
right. So instead of it going to wherever the county wanted to, we said, well, we want to take this money and do this for the schools. Other than that, I'm not aware of any donations to the schools per se. Now, you've got, we've got members on the school board. We've got, that's the place where we need representation. That's where we need to be really pushing is the school board. And I know I'm as, I need to be there too, but I mean, there's only 24 hours in a day. But thank you.
Mr. Daugherty, at one point there was discussion of commissioner discretionary allotments. Like, is that in the budget still?
Yes, we usually take care of that during the budgetary process, and we have allocated to each commissioner. And then, of course, this number, y'all set the budget.
Yep.
So, I mean, this number can be changed, but last year it was $2,500 per commissioner to give to whatever nonprofit is called community development, and each. So, but I don't know. I'm very hesitant to just. I've never seen anything done with a county where there is not some kind of written agreement.
Okay.
And even with that, if that was being done in the budget in the past, I still believe the city needs a
Donation.
policy that says that, or you may find yourself in awkward positions with what some people may think are good donations and others don't. And there obviously needs to be a limit. It needs to carry over from year to year. And so I think it would, if we don't have a policy, I think before we consider donations to exempt organizations like schools or nonprofit groups or what have you, then we really need to make sure that we have the skeleton or the framework, I guess is the word I'm looking for that. I'm not saying it's a bad idea at all, Commissioner Street. I just think we need to make sure that we have the appropriate framework for it.
Well, I brought it up because I knew it was going to take time to figure things out before we can even come to a decision about it. But we've got to start somewhere. And to me, we constantly have stuff going on, but not once have we actually stopped and done anything for our kids. I was just trying to throw something out there so we can at least stop and think about them for once, for just a little bit. So.
But if you could, when you review that donation policy, if there is a budget item per commissioner, see if a school would be acceptable. And so if there's a commissioner that has a certain project that they'd like to commit to, that's a good opportunity to give some money to. So. No questions or discussion?
No, thank you. I have none. I'm just
Thank you for
glad we
coming
got
out,
it out on
Thank you,
that.
Theo.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Langford.
Go to item 11, communication from mayor and commissioners. Commissioner Hall?
Well, I had something to talk about in kind of in that line, possibly in the future, about some practice fields for Titans football, practice fields for soccer, pickleball courts, basketball courts. And the commissioner here that wanted to set up that committee is not here tonight, and I wanted to volunteer for that committee if I possibly could. There's a lot of people that could utilize those facilities. First thing I'd like to say, we have no entertainment in this town for our children. This would be a good starting place, but it's also a good entertainment area for the adults in this community. But anyway, I will be one to volunteer for that committee to see what can be worked out for the future of giving us something to do as far as exercise, being out in the fresh air. And these were things that was mentioned. And I would like to be one to be helpful in trying to get that took care of. I thank for the people to come out tonight, and other than that, I have nothing else. Thank you.
Commissioner Fisher Street?
I do want to thank everyone for coming out and showing your support for what you believe in. There's been a lot of things that we do that we reap the repercussions of, and I think we're going to start seeing a few of those, in my opinion. But as far as the police and the fire departments, they, doing the best that they can, and we appreciate them very much. And the reports that we are given are very informational, and it kind of lets you see where we're at here in Fairview. Just keep doing your research, and just got to keep working together. Thank you.
Thank you. Just some quick comments. Congratulations to the high school baseball team on the regular season district championship. I know they had senior night tonight. The Parks Master Plan meeting, April 25th at 5:30, 7:30 here. And I think that's one of the discussions too, is facilities or future upgrades or future improvements are being talked about at meetings like this, including Williamson County and their facilities and things. And so that's a good time to have discussions like that. And then Saturday morning, 9 to 11, Earth Day and Arbor Day at Bowie Park, plant swap at 9 a.m. promptly. Is that correct? And that is all I have tonight. Thank you for everybody coming tonight. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.